You have visited China on various kinds of occasions. So what's your impression on Chinese women?
Well, I have met a number of amazingly dynamic Chinese women. But, you know, I firmly believe that across the world, women and indeed men, we share so much in common, far much more than we have that are differences. We share the same aspirations. I know because when I've been to China, I've spoken to many Chinese women about their own tensions over work-life balance and how can they bring up their children, how do they manage to fulfill themselves in work. I've been to Chinese universities and seen the young men and women who ask very challenging questions, who could be students here in London or in New York or anywhere around the world. But I'm also conscious that there is a part of China that I don't get to see very often, if at all, which is much more underdeveloped China. You have the powerhouses of Beijing and Shanghai and the regions, Hong Kong and the regions that are developing. And there are other parts of China where women are still living essentially a developing world existence. And there their opportunities
so there
are
is
much
a
more
difference
limited.
Between the urban area and the rural
Yes.
China.
And of course that's China's real challenge, isn't it? Because China has been managing over these last decades to move more and more people out of the rural areas and absorb them into the urban areas. But it's a big project. But to go back to your question, I find Chinese women extremely capable, extremely intelligent, and I always point out that I think the richest person in China happens to be a woman.
Currently, the BBC is running a special series about extreme world. That's the theme. Basically, it's examining the global differences that dividing us. So, in your opinion, where's the best place to be a woman and where's the worst?
It's not just in my opinion. If you look at the World Economic Forum produces something called the Global Gender Gap, and consistently there, Europe is probably the best continent, and Scandinavia in particular always scores as the most equal place. Not that men and women are equal in Scandinavia either, but they are more equal than in many other parts of the world. As for the worst places, sadly they are places like Afghanistan, Pakistan, countries where women are just not regarded as of equal worth to men. And of course in places like Afghanistan they don't even have the chance of an education.
So looking ahead, in years ahead, so what are the key areas that you think we should all make efforts to improve the women's situation here?
Well, I think that first of all we have to acknowledge that, women and men are equal, and that when men and women work together with equal dignity and equal respect, that's a winning combination. So it's not just women who suffer if women aren't given equal opportunities, it's actually men too, because they're deprived of the partnership that actually makes them fulfill their destiny as well. So that's really important. Clearly we need to see women's education coming to the fore, not least because 2/3 of the illiterate people in the world are women, often because of deliberate choices that the girls don't get educated. And yet if you do educate women, then you will find that they have fewer children, that the children they do have are better educated, the children they have are immunized and have better health, and they in turn are better able to contribute to the world. So educating women must be a priority, and of course it's one of the Millennium Development Goals. I think the other thing we need to see is that it's not good enough just to educate women. We have to then allow women to use that education to fulfill their potential. And there are still too many barriers that lead, as you mentioned at the beginning of this interview, to the situation so that we have many girls at university getting good grades, and yet within 5 years the boys are earning 15% more than the girls, and in 20 or 30 years you have only 12% of the FTSE 100 companies having women directors. This is clearly something that has to change.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Blair. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure, and let's hope that the 21st century really is the century of women.